Hi, this is tutorial number 2 of the skills test tutorials. And in this tutorial, we're going to talk about, after we've got the balloon placed in here properly, which looks pretty much to the right size. It may need to move over slightly, but that's close enough. The next thing we need to do is go to the basket. So the balloon basket file, if we go to that, the hardest thing is going to be on this is making good selection. So I'd use the quick selection tool and select around the background area, and don't worry about the lines that are going up. We don't want this part up here, so you can see I'm selecting the background first because then I'm going to invert this. So you can see, and then you may want to select some of these things and deselect some of these. Now you can do this later if you want to, it's up to you, but if you hold the Alt key down on Windows or Option on a Mac, you'll see the plus mark. I'll make this a little larger so you can see it. It's a plus, and then you hold the Option key down. If you are in the option here for Add to Selection, if you hold the Option key down, it'll go minus, and then if you make your brush smaller by using the left brackets, you can make this smaller, and then what I can do is bring back this area in here just by clicking and dragging. I'm holding the Alt or Option key down, okay, and then I brought back the burners on that. Okay, so the other thing is that if you want to get in closer, you can also, I have the background selected. You can kind of see if I zoom out, see it's marching ants all the way around and the blue sky. I don't have the basket selected, but that's part of our discussion about how to do this, is to invert it afterwards. So we'll go to select inverse in order to get the actual basket. But first you want to select the areas that you don't want part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the blue areas as much as I can. And some of this you may not be able to select very well because of the size of your brush, or because you need to zoom in. But if you zoom in pretty good, hold the Alt key or Option key for a Mac, or I'm sorry, I don't need to minus that, I need to plus that, so just ignore that. And just go ahead and select those areas if you want to get rid of the blue areas in there. Now see, I got too much, so you may need to bring that back. So hold the Option key down or Alt key to bring that back, and don't worry about these right now. That's not as important, but get rid of all these. Okay, so now we have a pretty good selection of the outside around this, and then all we have to do is going to select inverse, and now we have that selection. So what I would do is go ahead and you could select and mask this ahead of time, and that may help also if you go to any of the selection tools. If you go to select and mask, you could do that, or in this case all we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste, so don't worry about the select and mask. So I'm going to go ahead and go under edit, copy, then I'm going to go to the file that I've been working on, and that's going to be your background TIFF probably, but make sure you save it as a Photoshop file. And then I'm going to go ahead and say paste. And the reason that when I pasted it, I was on the dragon balloon layer, and it put it in the stack here, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go Command Z or edit undo. So now it says redo, but I already did it. So if you go to another layer, any layer besides the one with the clipped images to it, then when you create a new, when you paste, it'll create a new layer. So if I go to this one and then I go ahead and go under edit, paste, it'll create a new layer, and there's your basket. So if you do get it clipped in here, there's a way to unclip it too, but for now that's going to be good enough. You should be able to see it, and I don't think you need to necessarily select and mask this either. I'm not that worried about it. I just want to see that you can get this done. So let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and you can get an idea how big this is. So if we compare it to the final one is really tiny. So by the time we get this reduced, so hold the Shift key down and reduce it down to a more reasonable size, and that's looking pretty good. It may need to be more. Now the other thing about the basket too that you have to keep in consideration is if you look at the lighting on it, the lighting's on the wrong side. So the lighting in this picture, because of the shadows being here, the shadows are going this direction, so the light's over here going in this direction. So if you see the light going in this direction, so the basket's turned the wrong way. So if we go into Edit, Transform, Flip horizontally, it will flip it, and then it'll have the sun on the right side where it should be, a little bit closer. Okay, we may still need to reduce the size of this down quite a bit, and let's I'm going to keep it to the actual size, then compare it to this. Yeah, that's tiny compared to it, so let's make it a little smaller, probably somewhere around that size. Looks good compared to the people here, and we have to figure it's pretty close, you know, sitting next to them, so it's pretty close to that. It may need to go further up in the sky a little bit, and the dragon balloon could too, but I think what I'll do is I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. There we go. And that looks pretty realistic. So when you zoom in on this, you'll see that there's some blue sky area. Those are the areas that we couldn't get rid of. So all you have to do is go in here with your eraser tool, and you can go in here and erase those. Or you can go to the smart eraser, your magic eraser. That's actually really good too, because if you make sure that you just click in those areas, it'll actually just erase those areas real quickly. So you have to be careful where you're clicking to make sure that you're not getting, you know, some of these areas that you don't really want. So, okay. So you might be able to get rid of some of these things, and just be careful it doesn't erase something that you actually want. So I think that's probably good enough. It's not that necessary. Now if you wanted to, you can put the lines on there, and the lines are another subject that we haven't really talked about. But if you want to create the lines that go up to the basket, you can create a new layer just by clicking on the layers. Now this is the one that we created for the basket, so I do want you to name these layers, and this one should be dragon balloon. I'll just call it dragon for now, and then basket, and then whatever, these are background copies and so on. Okay, so on this one, if you want to create that those lines, you can create a new layer, and then all you have to do is go to the brush tool, make sure that you have black forward, you have your brush set to very small by using your left brackets on your keyboard. Should be very tiny, and you want to zoom in on this, and it's got to go into where it's more of a crosshair, so you can kind of see down at the bottom it goes into a crosshair. And I've got this pretty small, so I'll go ahead and show you a little bit how this works. But on this layer, all you have to do is click where you want the lines to go from. Now they should be going from here on up. So as on, let's take a look at the actual basket. See, the lines are going from here up. We're not going to make it look exactly the same, but let's go back and look at that real quick again. Yeah, so it's coming from that area. Okay, so basically from this area. So I'm going to click once with my brush tool, and then I'm going to go up to about where I think it should go, holding the shift key down, and it'll create a line. So down here, and then go up here, click holding the shift key, and you can see the lines going in. So I click once with nothing held down, hold the shift key down and click, and it makes a straight line. So you see a little line going across here. I'm going to click down here, go up here, click once, and there's a line. Now if you want this a little bit bigger, you can make your brush a little bigger. I'm going to make it one size bigger, and you can see when I do this, you might be able to see a little bit better. That's a little bit better. So I'm clicking down here, click once up here, and I'll do it again, even though, you know, I've already done it once already, but you can kind of see. Okay, and that gives you a better idea of what it looks like, or what it should look like. And if you want to do another one, you can put another one in there if you want to put another one in. Okay, so that's all on one separate layer. So you'll call these lines possibly. Okay, and that's what that looks like. Okay, and they should go behind the balloon, and they can go over the top of the basket. That's fine. So that's the balloon. We have that done. Okay, the only other thing we need to do is do a shadow for the balloon. So let's go ahead and do a shadow for the balloon. So the balloon layer is here. We want the shadow layer to go below. So if I hold my Option key down and click on the new layer here, or this is Alt on the Windows computer, you can click and, sorry, it should be Command. Click, it'll create a layer below it. Now if you want to do your own layer, if you create a layer now, it's going to go into this stack, which you don't want to do. Okay, so you want to go below it and then click on it because the layer goes above it. Now this is going to be, you're going to call it this the balloon shadow. Okay, and then on the balloon shadow, what we're going to do is we're just going to paint this in. So you can see on here there's a shadow, but it's really soft edge shadow, and it's got a color that's very close to this. So if you go to the paintbrush, okay, and then we go into the colors, we click on the paintbrush, click on colors, and then what happens is when you go away from the color picker, you'll see you get the eyedropper, and you want to pick a color somewhere in that range that's kind of a dark blue color. So I'm going to pick this a little bit darker and maybe a little darker than that because you can see it wasn't really dark enough. Then I'm going to make my brush bigger by using my right brackets and make this a lot bigger. I want to go up here to opacity, keep that fairly low, about 15%. And then I'm going to brush in. Now you can see over here, the shadow would be kind of over in this area somewhere. So you can kind of just paint this in. Now it's looking kind of blue, so I think I want to change this to get this a little blacker because it should be a lot blacker. And the other thing for this is in modes, if you do darken, it'll darken what's below it, or if you use multiply, it'll darken like that. So if you can see, that looks a lot better using just this multiply mode. Okay, the color's not quite the same, but it's fine for what we're doing. And of course, if you get it too dark, like I'm getting a little dark now, you can see. And if you get it too dark, that's fine too, because all you have to do is go up to opacity in here for that layer and lower the opacity down. So that's how you would do it. It's pretty simple. And realistically, that shadow might even be off the page itself. So that's the same thing that you would do with the woman. So let's go ahead and take a look at her too. We have her in this other layer, so that'll be part 2 on the next tutorial.